The ballroom shimmered with candlelight, casting a golden hue over the sea of expensive dresses and designer suits. Laughter floated through the air like music, champagne glasses clinked, and camera flashes occasionally sparked across the velvet-draped walls. The Grand Lexington Hotel was hosting the annual Philanthropy Gala, an event meant to honor generosity, but for Jason Cole, it had become a convenient escape. He stood near the far end of the room, just past the ice sculpture shaped like a phoenix, his fingers wrapped loosely around a glass of sparkling water he hadn't touched. His tailored tuxedo was flawless, just like his reputation. The youngest tech CEO to take his company public. The man who turned a garage dream into a billion-dollar empire. The headline darling. The man with everything. Almost everything. His expression was composed, cool, unreadable. But beneath the surface, there was a noise he hadn't been able to silence in 5 years. A question he never allowed himself to ask. Regret wasn't something Jason entertained. He buried emotions under meetings, strategy decks, mergers, and quarterly earnings. He didn't revisit the past. He rebuilt. But that night, one glance shattered all the armor he'd spent years crafting. He saw her. She hadn't changed. Not really. Still graceful. Still radiant. Her dark hair now curled gently over her shoulders. Her presence as grounded and calm as he remembered. But what stopped his breath, what made his world shift, was what came with her. To boys. About 4, maybe 5. Dressed in matching navy vests and tiny bow ties, each holding one of her hands. Identical. Bright eyes. Familiar posture. One rubbed his nose the way Jason used to when nervous. The other clutched a toy car like it was treasure, Jason's. Fingers tightened slightly around his glass. He couldn't move. He didn't remember taking a breath. The air around him had suddenly thinned, and every sound in the ballroom faded behind a dull roar in his ears. It was like watching a memory he didn't know he had, unfolding in real time. They looked like him, exactly like him, across the room. She looked up. Their eyes met. Her expression didn't change. No smile, no frown. Just a quiet stillness, like someone bracing for a storm. Then she gently turned, crouched to whisper something to the boys, and led them toward the elevator without looking back. Jason stood frozen in place. He didn't chase her, couldn't. He wasn't ready. Not yet. 5 years earlier, the house had been too quiet. The kind of silence that comes after an argument that should never have happened but did. She stood in the doorway, keys in her hand, a duffel bag by her side. Her voice had been calm, but tired. I'm not asking you to change everything, Jason. I'm asking you to grow with me. Jason remembered standing near the fireplace, arms crossed, frustration barely restrained. You knew from day one I didn't want kids. That hasn't changed. I gave you honesty, Sarah. She looked at him then, with those eyes that always saw straight through his success. And I gave you love. But love grows. It creates. It makes space for more. You're afraid of that. I'm not afraid, he'd said too sharply. I'm focused. There's a difference. You're afraid of losing control, she had whispered. Jason hadn't responded. He couldn't. The words cut to close. So she walked, quietly, deliberately. And he let her. At the time, it felt like a business decision, like closing a door you convinced yourself wasn't necessary. He turned the page, doubled his hours, hired a new assistant, went back to the gym, bought a new penthouse. And for 5 years, he told himself he made the right call. Until tonight, until her. Until the boys. The gala continued around him. Laughter swelled, music played. Donors clapped as a speaker took the mic. But Jason's mind wasn't in that room anymore. It was chasing after 5 lost years, and the question that now screamed in his chest. Had he been a father all this time and didn't know? 1,000 possibilities ran through his mind, none of them comforting. Why hadn't she told him? Why now? Why show up here? Was it a coincidence, or did she want him to see? The image of her with the boys burned into his mind like a brand he couldn't scrub away. And for the first time in his life, Jason Cole, the man who calculated every risk, predicted every trend, and controlled every outcome, was completely, utterly shaken. He didn't sleep that night. The city glittered beneath his floor-to-ceiling windows, but he just stood there, staring out. jaw clenched, replaying every moment of the evening. He could still hear one of the boys laughing, high-pitched, innocent, a sound Jason had never made room for in his life. He had told her, 5 years ago, that kids didn't belong in his world. Now he wasn't so sure. What if he had been wrong? What if he had walked away from the very thing that could have saved him? Jason blinked at the skyline, then reached for his phone. He needed answers, and he needed her. Now. The city was still wrapped in darkness when Jason Cole stepped into his office. It was only 5:15 a.m., yet he'd already showered, shaved, and bypassed his driver to get behind the wheel himself. He hadn't slept. His body couldn't rest when his mind wouldn't stop running. He dropped his phone on the mahogany desk and stared at the window, watching the horizon stretch into a soft orange glow. Usually, mornings were his favorite. Quiet, controlled, productive. But today, everything felt foreign. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was loud with questions. He replayed the moment again. The way she turned, the way the boys looked. There had been no sign of hesitation in her eyes. No hint that she needed anything from him. That unnerved him more than he cared to admit. Sarah didn't return to haunt him. She wasn't trying to get attention. She hadn't called, hadn't written. She had disappeared into a life he was no longer part of. But those boys, they told a different story. He opened his laptop, fingers trembling slightly, a rare sight for a man known for steel nerves. He typed her name into a search bar. Nothing public. She'd kept a low profile. No social media. No articles. No mentions. In PR pages, it was like she'd vanished the day she walked out his door. Until last night. Then he remembered the man she was standing with, the one in the gray blazer talking to her. Just before she left. Not a partner, he assumed. There hadn't been any closeness, no touches. Maybe a friend, a colleague. Jason pulled up photos from the gala. He always had media access for events like that. His team uploaded them in real time to internal archives. He scrolled through until he found the one he needed. There she was, red dress, soft smile, the two boys beside her. Zooming in, he studied their faces. The way the one on the left held her hand tighter, the way the other looked up at her mid-laugh. Both had his eyes, his cheekbones, his chin. A lump formed in his throat. It was no longer a question of possibility. It was reality. They were his. He had sons, and he'd missed everything. First steps, first words, first birthdays, bedtime stories, sick days, tumbles, tears, giggles. Gone. Jason leaned back in his chair, a deep ache pressing against his chest. He thought he had built a perfect life, sleek, quiet, powerful. But now he saw it for what it really was. Empty. The office door opened. Quietly, Rebecca, his assistant, stepped in, carrying his schedule for the day. "I pushed your meeting with the board back an hour," she said. "Also, there's a message from the event photographer. He said someone was asking for photos. Do we have contact information for the guest list?" Jason cut in, eyes still on the screen. Rebecca blinked. "From last night's gala? Yes. I need a name. The woman in the red dress who left with 2 kids. Rebecca paused. "That's not exactly our protocol, Mr. Cole." Jason stood slowly, turning to face her. "This isn't a press issue. It's personal." She hesitated, then nodded and left without another word. Jason stared at the doorway after she'd gone, his mind already 10 steps ahead. He wasn't sure what he'd say to Sarah when he saw her. How do you even begin a conversation with the mother of your children you didn't know existed? But he had to try, because now, knowing they were out there, he couldn't go back to pretending nothing had happened. A few hours later, a name popped up in his email. The man Sarah had been speaking with, Lucas Green, a family law attorney based out of Santa Monica. He wasn't hard to track. Jason placed a call, half expecting the line to go to voicemail. But a receptionist picked up. "Lucas Green's office. This is Jason Cole. I'd like to schedule a meeting with Mr. Green. It's regarding a personal matter involving a former acquaintance of his." "Sarah Monroe." There was a pause. "Mr. Green is in court until this afternoon. I can offer you an appointment at 4. Jason looked at his calendar. He had a quarterly briefing at 4, followed by a dinner with investors. "Cancel everything," he said. "Yes, sir." The day moved slowly, Every meeting dragged, every conversation felt hollow. His focus was gone, his usual drive buried beneath the weight of uncertainty. At precisely 3:50 p.m., he walked into the law office in Santa Monica. No assistant, no entourage. Just him, dressed in a quiet navy suit, hands clenched into fists at his side. He didn't know what he expected. A cold shoulder, a warning, a confrontation. But when Lucas stepped into the waiting area, his face was calm, professional. "Mr. Cole," he said, extending a hand. "Come in." Jason followed him into the corner office, walls lined with books, soft jazz playing from a small speaker, windows overlooking the city. The kind of place that didn't need to impress, it simply existed in control. "I'm going to be direct," Jason began, sitting across from him. "I saw Sarah Monroe at the gala last night, with 2 boys. They looked about 4. They looked like me." Lucas didn't flinch. "I need to know if they're mine." Lucas exhaled slowly and leaned back. "It's not my place to confirm that, Mr. Cole. But I can tell you that Sarah didn't come last night to start trouble. She was invited by the foundation director. She almost didn't go. She doesn't attend these things anymore." "Why not?" "Because she's been raising those boys on her own, quietly, with grace. She didn't take a dollar she didn't earn, didn't drag your name through the mud, didn't look for headlines. She made a life for them, one that's stable, safe, and full of love." Jason looked away, throat tight. "Did she ever try to tell me?" Lucas hesitated. "She wrote a letter once, when they were born. But then she remembered your last words to her." Jason winced. "No kids, ever." Lucas folded his hands. "You made it clear you didn't want children. She chose not to beg. She protected them from rejection, even if it meant walking away alone." A silence fell between them, the weight of it pressed against Jason's spine. "I want to see them," he said finally, voice low. "That's not my decision. That's Sarah's. Can you tell her I asked?" Lucas studied him for a moment, then nodded. "I will." Jason left the office feeling like a man who had lost something he never realized he had. And now, for the first time in his life, he wanted nothing more than a chance to earn it back, even if it took everything. It had been 3 days since the meeting with the attorney, and Jason had heard nothing, not a call, not an email, not even a polite refusal. Every hour that passed felt like another mile placed between him and the truth between him, and the chance to look into the eyes of 2 little boys who might carry his blood. He hadn't told anyone, not his board, not his friends, what few he still had, not even Rebecca, who had begun to notice the shift in his routine. Jason Cole had never been known for being distracted. Until now, he was sitting in his car, parked just outside an elementary school in Westwood. Engine off, sunglasses shielding his face as parents came and went with their children. He didn't know if he'd crossed a line. All he had was a whisper from Lucas that Sarah lived nearby and the name of a school she'd recently inquired about. That was it. And yet, he was here. He didn't know what he expected to happen. Maybe nothing. Maybe fate would throw him a bone. Maybe he'd catch a glimpse of them. Maybe he wouldn't. Then he saw the blue car pull up, modest, safe, a child. Seat in the back. Sarah stepped out, wearing jeans and a soft gray sweater. Her hair was tied back. She looked the same, like time had touched her gently. The door behind her opened, and 2 identical boys jumped out with backpacks slung over their tiny shoulders. One ran ahead, laughing. The other stopped and tugged at her hand. Jason's heart stopped. It was them. He knew it. There was no room for doubt anymore. Every instinct in his body screamed it. He wanted to get out of the car, to call her name, to run and explain everything. But his hand gripped the steering wheel so tightly it turned white. This wasn't how he wanted it, not from across the street, not as a shadow in a car. He waited. Watched. She bent down to zip up one of the boys' jackets. He wrapped his arms around her neck and whispered something in her ear. Her face lit up with a smile one Jason had once known better than his own. Reflection. That smile wasn't for him anymore. And that hurt. He drove away before they saw him. Not because he didn't want to be seen, but because he didn't know how to be the man they needed. Not yet. That night, back in his penthouse, Jason sat on the floor of his living room. No music, no screams, just silence. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a box he hadn't opened in years. Inside was the last letter Sarah had written to him, the one she'd left on the nightstand the day she walked out. He'd never read it. Too proud, too stubborn, too afraid. His hands trembled as he unfolded the paper. Jason, I know you're not ready to be a father. I know what matters to you, your work, your vision, your empire. I admire that. I always have. But I need something more. Not because I'm weak, but because I'm growing. I want to love louder. I want to build more than walls and businesses. I want life, and life means family. You once told me you built everything from nothing. I believe you, but I also believe this: if we can create life together, then maybe we're meant to build something even greater, something that doesn't come with a title or IPO. If one day you look for me, I hope it's not out of guilt, but out of love. Take care of yourself. Sarahi's throat tightened. Tears blurred the edges of the page, and for the first time in 5 years, Jason Cole cried. Not because he was angry, not because he had failed, but because he finally understood what he had lost, and what he still might have a chance to rebuild. The next morning, he did something that surprised even himself. He picked up the phone and called her. The line rang once, twice, then her voice. Hello. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Silence. Jason, his breath caught. Yeah, it's me. Another pause. He could feel her guard go up through the phone. I didn't expect to hear from you. I know. I saw you at the gala. I figured. The boys, yes, they're mine, he said softly. Not a question. Yes, she said just as gently. Another long pause stretched between them, but it wasn't sharp. It was fragile. I don't want to interrupt your life, he said. I don't want to confuse them, but I saw them, Sarah. I saw you. And he swallowed. I want to make it right. She didn't speak for a moment. You can't undo 5 years, Jason. I know. They're not waiting for a dad to show up. They have everything they need. I'm not here to take anything away, he said. I'm asking for a chance to get to know them, to earn something back. Sarah exhaled slowly. They're good boys, kind, curious, loud. She laughed softly. They love puzzles and dinosaurs. They don't know about you. Then maybe I can meet them as a friend, or whatever you think is right. There was a silence on the line, but this time it felt different. Not cold, not angry. Just careful. Okay, she said. One meeting at the park near our house, Saturday. 2 p.m. Jason closed his eyes. Thank you. I'm not doing this for you, she said, but her voice had softened. I know. I'm doing it for them. He nodded. Though she couldn't see it, that's all I could ever ask. As he hung up the phone, he didn't feel relief. He felt terrified, vulnerable, uncertain. But beneath all that, there was something new. Hope. The sound of children laughing echoed through the park like music, carefree, bright, the kind that made strangers smile without realizing it. The air smelled faintly of grass and sunshine, and somewhere nearby, a dad cheered as his daughter climbed to the top of a slide. Jason stood near the bench at the edge of the playground, trying to breathe like a normal person. But nothing about this moment felt normal. His palms were sweating, and his chest felt too tight beneath his casual jacket. He hadn't worn anything this low-key in years. Jeans, sneakers, no watch, no polished facade. He didn't want to look like a CEO today. He just wanted to look like someone who could belong. He arrived 20 minutes early. Not because he was eager, though he was, but because he didn't trust himself to be late. Every second between now and when they arrived felt like a countdown to something. He had no script for. He watched the families around him. Moms pushing strollers, dads wiping sticky hands, kids darting between swings and monkey bars. This world had always seemed far away from him. He used to think he had no place in it. But now, standing in the middle of it all, he wanted nothing more than to be a part of it. Then he saw her. Sarah walked toward him, wearing a soft green blouse and light-wash jeans. Her hair was down this time, swaying in the breeze, and on each side of her, one of the boys walked, talking, pointing, bouncing with energy. They each carried a small plastic dinosaur in one hand. Jason's breath caught. This was real. She spotted him, nodded once, and motioned for the boys to go ahead. They ran toward the play structure without looking back, and she slowed her steps as she approached him. "You came," she said simply. "I wasn't going to miss this." She nodded, then glanced at the boys. "They don't know who you are." I told them we were meeting a friend. "Just be yourself. No big stories, no promises." "I understand. And if this goes wrong," she added, her eyes locking on his, "we stop. No questions. Deal?" He followed her gaze toward the playground. The boys had already climbed halfway up the jungle gym, laughing as they raced each other. Jason swallowed hard. "What are their names?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. She turned to him. Softer now. "Leo and Miles." He smiled quietly, the names repeating in his head like a song he didn't know he'd always loved. "Which one is which?" "Leo's in the blue sneakers. Miles is the one with the curls." Jason nodded. "They're amazing." She smiled, a little proud, a little protective. "They are." Then, without another word, she called to them. "Boys, come meet someone." They ran toward her, both slightly out of breath and full of stories about the slide, a funny-looking squirrel, and how Leo's Dino had saved the day from a playground invasion. Sarah knelt down. "This is Jason. He's a friend of mine." Jason bent down to their level, offering a gentle smile. "Hey guys, I heard you two are dinosaur experts." They stared at him for a beat, eyes bright and curious, before Leo held up his plastic. "Raptor, this one can beat any T-Rex, even the big ones." Jason's smile widened. "You sure?" "I heard T-Rexes are pretty tough." Miles jumped in. "Yeah, but raptors are faster, and they hunt in packs." He chuckled. "Smart kid." Sarah stood quietly to the side, watching, arms crossed, but not cold, just cautious. She wasn't expecting him to be perfect. She was just hoping he wouldn't disappoint. "Want to see how fast ours can go?" Miles asked. Jason grinned. "Lead the way." The necks are passed in a blur of laughter, dino chases, and games of tag. Jason found himself crawling through tunnels, catching kids on slides, and even pretending to be a volcano at one point, all while Sarah watched from the bench, smiling in spite of herself. He didn't try too hard. He didn't ask about their routines or what they called their bedtime songs. He didn't push for information. He just showed up. By the time the sun began to dip, painting the park in soft amber light, the boys were sprawled on the grass, drawing shapes in the dirt with sticks. Jason sat beside them, heart full, knees sore, a smudge of dirt on his shirt he hadn't noticed. Sarah walked over, her face unreadable. "They like you," she said. Jason looked up, not trying to hide the emotion in his eyes. "I like them." She nodded, folding her arms. "That wasn't easy for me, I know. Thank you for letting it happen." She hesitated, then sat beside him. "I used to imagine you like this sometimes. When they were babies, late nights, bottles, diapers, I'd think, maybe one day." He looked at her, quiet. "And then I'd remember how you looked at me the day I left. Like I was asking you to throw away everything that mattered to you. I didn't understand then." He said, "What you were offering, what we were losing, and now, I don't care about boardrooms or accolades the way I used to. Not if I can't share it with someone." She looked at him, searching. "I'm not asking for anything," he said softly. "Not forgiveness, not a role. I just want the chance to be someone they can trust, even if that's all." Sarah glanced toward the boys. "They'll ask questions. Eventually. I'll answer them, truthfully, gently, and if they don't want more, then I'll still be here." She studied him for a moment longer, then finally said, "They have a soccer game next Saturday. If you want to come." Jason blinked. "Really, don't make it weird. Just come." A slow smile spread across his face. "I'll be there." She stood up and called the boys, who ran toward her, all noise and sunshine. Jason watched them go, a strange ache in his chest, a mix of longing and something new. He wasn't part of their world yet, but for the first time, the door wasn't closed. And sometimes, even a crack of light is enough to begin again. The field buzzed with weekend energy, parents chatting along the sidelines, kids in mismatched uniforms running wild across the grass, whistles blowing, and little voices shouting about goals and snacks, and whose turn it was to kick. Folding chairs lined the edge of the pitch like a battalion of well-prepared spectators. It was loud, chaotic, and beautifully imperfect. Jason stood behind the row of chairs, not sure if he should sit or keep standing. He had shown up early again, but this time it wasn't nerves, it was something else. Something lighter. A strange eagerness he didn't recognize until he caught himself smiling at the little moments. A boy with his shoelaces untied tripping and giggling. A dad holding up a glittery sign that said "Go Lily." A mom high-fiving her kid like he just scored in the World Cup. He was beginning to see the beauty in these small, unscripted moments, the ones you can't plan for or measure, the ones that just matter. Then he saw them. Sarah walked across the grass, holding a small cooler in one hand, a soccer ball under her arm, and Miles and Leo racing ahead of her in matching green jerseys. They hadn't seen him yet. The boys were already running toward their teammates, their laughter soaring in the morning air. Sarah's eyes found him a second later. She gave a quiet, guarded nod, the kind that said, "You showed up, and let's see how this goes," all at once. Jason lifted a hand in greeting, then stepped closer. "You made it," she said, adjusting her sunglasses. "I said I would. They're really excited," she added, then paused, looking at him fully. "But they still think you're just a friend of mine." "I understand," he said. "This isn't about rushing them." Sarah handed him a small folding chair. "You'll want this. The games aren't short," he chuckled, unfolding it beside hers. "Good to know." The coach blew the whistle, and the kids scattered like startled birds into their positions. Jason watched as Miles tugged his socks up to his knees and Leo adjusted his headband like it was a crown. They waved toward the sideline, and Jason instinctively waved back. Sarah noticed. "They've been asking about you," she said after a moment. Jason's heart jumped. "What do they ask?" "Mostly about your job. They want to know if you make video games or spy gear." He smiled. "I could lie and say yes, but I'd hate to disappoint them." She looked at him thoughtfully. "They're smart. They'd figure it out. Then maybe I'll tell them I build tools that help other people build things." Still exciting, right? A cheer broke out across the field. The kids had scored. Jason wasn't sure how, but it didn't matter. Leo jumped up and down, arms wide, yelling something only half intelligible. Jason clapped with the rest of the crowd, but his eyes were full. Sarah turned slightly toward him. "They've never had a man in their life like this, not one who showed up more than once." "I'd like to change that," Jason said quietly. "It's not about what you want, Jason." She replied gently. "It's about what they need and what they can trust." He nodded slowly. "I'm here. That's all I know how to promise right now. But I mean it, later." After juice boxes had been passed around and orange slices had stained fingers, Leo and Miles tugged Jason by both hands toward the nearby swings. "Push us," Miles demanded. "Higher," Leo added. Jason looked at Sarah for permission. She gave a small shrug and a soft smile. So he did. He pushed them, one on each side, laughing as they leaned back into the sky. Hair flying, giggles loud enough to carry across the park. And in that moment, everything else fell away. The missed years, the old words, the distance, the doubt. There were only two boys, a pair of swings, and the man who should have been there all along. As the boys ran off to climb a nearby jungle gym, Sarah approached quietly. "They like you. A lot. I like them more than I thought I could." She watched him for a beat. "They'll want to know soon. About everything." Jason nodded. "I'll be honest and careful. And when they ask why you weren't there before," he didn't answer right away. Then, slowly, "Because I was afraid of becoming someone I didn't understand. And by the time I realized who I wanted to be, I thought it was too late." Sarah looked at him. "Maybe it was, for you and me." He didn't argue. She continued. "But maybe not for them." They stood in silence, watching Leo help Miles climb a ladder, both of them beaming with the kind of joy that couldn't be bought or faked. Then Sarah added, "If you want, you can take them for ice cream next weekend. Just you and them." Jason turned sharply. "Are you serious? They've been asking, and I think it's time." He felt the words settle in his chest like sunlight. "I'd love that." "They're picky," she warned, "and one of them always ends up with sticky hands." "I'll survive." As Sarah walked back toward the jungle gym to gather the boys, Jason stood still, overwhelmed. Grateful, humbled. For the first time in his life, his next move didn't involve money, meetings, or media. It involved two little hands reaching for him, and he was ready to reach back. The boys were buzzing with excitement even before they stepped into the ice cream shop. It was the kind of old-fashioned place with a striped awning, glass jars filled with candy on the shelves, and the smell of fresh waffle cones floating through the air. Jason held the door open for Leo and Miles as they darted inside, their eyes wide and shining like it was Disneyland. "Okay," Jason said, kneeling between them. "Here's the deal, we all try something new. Nothing boring like vanilla." "Agreed," Miles grinned. "What if we like boring?" Leo elbowed his brother. "I want blue bubblegum." "Deal," Jason laughed, "as long as you promise to let me try a bite." The woman behind the counter gave him a warm smile as she handed over the cones. 3 scoops for the 3 of them: bubblegum, strawberry swirl, and mango chili. Jason wasn't sure who was more excited, the kids or himself. They sat outside under a big red umbrella, the late afternoon sun glowing gently on the pavement. Leo licked his cone with intense concentration, while Miles chattered about his latest school project, something about building a volcano. Jason listened, really listened. He laughed when they made jokes that barely made sense. He nodded like every word they said was the most important thing he'd heard all day, and in a way, it was, Jason said after a moment, "When I was your age, I wanted to be an astronaut." "Really?" Miles asked, eyes wide. "Yep. I wanted to fly through space and see all the stars. But then I got older, and I stopped dreaming like that." "Why?" Leo asked. Jason paused. "Because sometimes adults forget how good it feels to believe in something bigger than themselves." The boys were quiet for a second. Then Leo said, "I want to be a chef. I make the best toast ever." Jason chuckled. "Then one day you'll own your own restaurant. I'll be your first customer. Can I make you space toast?" Leo added, "Only if you promise it won't float away," Jason said. Sarah pulled up a few minutes later in her car, and the boys ran toward her with sticky fingers and huge smiles. "He let us try chili mango," Miles shouted, half proud, half confused by the flavor. "And he said we can go see a movie next time," Leo added. Sarah looked over at Jason as she opened the back door for the boys. "Sounds like a good afternoon." Jason nodded. "Better than good." They stood there a moment, the parking lot around them slowly emptying out. "They talk about you a lot," she said softly. "More than I expected. I think about them constantly," he replied. "And about the time I lost." Sarah looked down. "I used to wonder how different it might have been if you just said yes back then." Jason took a step closer. "I used to think success meant being in control of everything, building something powerful. Now I think, maybe, real success is just being someone they can count on." She held his gaze. "They're still young. There's room in their hearts. But you'll have to show up. Every time, no matter what." "I will," he promised. She hesitated, then asked, "And what about you? Are you doing this because you miss me, or because you're ready for them?" Jason's voice was steady. "This isn't about fixing the past. It's about choosing the future. I'm here because I want to be the kind of man they deserve." She nodded slowly. "Then you better start planning for their birthday next month. They want a dinosaur cake and a scavenger hunt." "Done," he smiled. "Any requests from the mom?" "I just want to see them happy." Jason looked toward the car. The boys were laughing in the back seat, drawing something on the fogged-up window with their fingers. "Then I'll do whatever it takes to make sure that happiness lasts." As Sarah drove away, Jason stood still, watching the car disappear into the soft orange sunset. He never imagined a simple ice cream trip would mean so much. But it did. It meant everything. And somewhere deep inside him, a quiet hope began to take root. This wasn't just a reunion. It was the beginning of something beautiful. A second chance not only to love, but to be loved back, fully and without fear. This time, he wouldn't walk away. He had finally found the life he never knew he needed, and he was ready to live it, one honest, imperfect, beautiful moment at a time.